when it comes to engineers, I think engineers really hold on to this identity
Mm,
of the types of problems that they solve.
mm,
And when they're moving through kind of the individual contributor roles that they might have, as
yeah.
I'm an entry level engineer and maybe become a senior engineer and maybe a technical lead or something like that, they're in this space of their optimal contribution in those roles is their ability to solve the technical problems that
Hmm.
need to be solved, right? And all too often, the really great engineers, which there are a lot of them,
Yeah.
then get rewarded by that to say, hey, we need someone to lead the team now,
Yeah.
or take on this new initiative and lead this. And
Yeah.
so they get put into a leadership position at some point,
Hmm.
and just sort of told to go do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but we forget that shift into a leadership mode is, and the value that you bring is completely different. The focus that you have is completely different. It's not on your ability to do the technical work anymore.
Have you enjoyed listening to the IncrediPaul podcast? Are you looking for a way to support it? Or maybe you just want some swag? Check out the IncrediPaul store today. We have shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, stickers, and so much more. Go to IncrediPaul.org, IncrediPaul.org, and click on the store link. Or go to the link in my socials bio and click on the IncrediPaul shop. Looking forward to seeing your IncrediPaul look.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality. Welcome to the IncrediPaul podcast. And now, sharing his expertise, experience, and excellence with the world, here's your host, Paul Ferranby.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranby, and welcome to the IncrediPaul podcast, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Jeff Perry on the podcast, who is the founder of More Than Engineering. Jeff, how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Sounds good, Paul. I'm so excited to be here. This is such an honor and so much fun to be able to jump on and share some of the things that I've learned. People probably don't care too much about like a lot of my background, but I do have like an engineering technology background in mechanical and software engineering and manufacturing. Did a number of different things, got into engineering leadership. But what I found a few years into my corporate career was that the things that I really cared about came down to the influence I could have on people.
Mm.
And so for the last few years, I've been building out More Than Engineering. And I like to say that I kind of went from developing products and services and processes to developing people now in the work that I do. And a lot of that is around trying to unlock the potential in engineers and technology professionals in their career growth opportunities and also their leadership, which spans out to the impact that they can have in so many other ways. Because I think that engineers and technology people and everyone really has so much impact and potential inside of them that we just need to kind of unlock that. And so that's a lot of my purpose and what drives me these days.
That's awesome. I really like that as far as unlocking the potential with others. And then you're focused on engineering, but really helping others. So as far as getting to there, did you always have that in mind, or how did it come about for the idea to do More Than Engineering?
No, not at all. I did not plan this years ago. It sort of, like a lot of us, there are catalysts that happen in our lives. There are moments of decision that we need to have. And so to go back just a little bit, back in 2017, on top of my engineering leadership position, our company was going through some changes, and we brought in some consultants to start do some culture work inside the company. And I actually got trained to deliver 2-day workshops and did that for the whole company. And it was primarily on mindsets and how our mindsets drive our behavior, which then drives our results, right? And how we see people is a huge impact on how we collaborate and work together, and then the innovation and the results that we're getting together, right? And that process changed me and the way that I saw how I interacted and worked with people and how I collaborated, and it
Yeah.
changed my awareness of myself and my role in developing other people. I had to become aware and be more open to some changes that I needed to make that I was
Yeah.
completely blind to at the
Yeah.
time. And but all of that, we were talking about unlocking potential, that unlocked in me going through that experience, this desire and kind of that recognition that what I really looked forward to in my work was when I could do that really personal impact, not as much some of the more technical things and the projects and stuff that I was working on. That was important to do, but that's not the stuff that was really lighting me up.
Yeah.
And so I was starting to think, okay, how could I do more of this? And then I had sort of a catalyst moment in work where there was an organizational shift, like there often is, but I was already at a point where I'd kind of felt like I'd hit a plateau of growth and opportunity.
Yeah.
And then the shift felt like it was going to keep me more in a space that for me was more of a maintainer rather than a creator of projects and processes, which isn't an optimized place for me to be. And I recognized that that wasn't going to be a great situation for me. And consequently, that wasn't going to be great for my employer either to do that if I was in that position. So we had some discussions. I was really frank and honest about what I felt about this. I wasn't pointing fingers at anyone for what was going on, but just trying to be straight up and honest. And I got to the point where I had some courage to say, hey, if we can find and craft another role that would probably be a better fit for me and also be a benefit to the organization, then I'd love to do that, because there are a lot of things I really loved about working there. I had great friends, I had great support. There were a lot of fabulous things there. But if we can't do that, then it's probably best for me to go.
Are you wondering what's next? Has everything you tried failed? Or maybe you just feel stuck? Then coaching might be right for you. The coaching relationship is a relationship totally centered on you. If you're tired of running on the hamster wheel of life and want to start to see results, reach out to IncrediPaul for help. So what are you waiting for? Go to IncrediPaul.org/coaching, IncrediPaul.org/coaching, or at I am IncrediPaul on all my socials. Or you can click the link in the bio for your free coaching session. I want to make sure you become the most incredible version of yourself.
Because I'm probably not the best fit to do that.
Yeah.
And so that was a leap of faith. We explored some things, but in the end, this decision was that there wasn't another place for me that was the right fit at the right time. And so we said, okay, it's probably time to go. And I was okay with that because I had brought that up, right? And they were okay with that. And they were very kind on how we moved through that transition. But then obviously the question was, now what?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I didn't know. So I spent a whole lot of time journaling. I'm a religious person. I was praying and trying to get in touch with that side of things, and was really unsure. And the cool thing about engineers, and a lot of us, is we have so many things that we could do and could do well, right? But then making that decision, getting that clarity on, okay, what are we going to do? That was a harder thing. So I spent a lot of time in reflection and introspection, trying to uncover things, had a lot of conversations with mentors and family members. And it was a weird time because I was halfway through an MBA degree that I was doing part-time with my work. And I had a family I was taking care of with 2 kids already and a third on the way at the time.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, now what are we doing here? But one day when I was journaling, I had this idea of a lot of these principles that stem from engineering around how energy flows and some of the things we were using in manufacturing, due to root cause analysis and a lot and so many other things, and how some of those ideas could apply to how we change as people. And it
Wow.
was one of those days where I feel like you can't stop writing,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like the ideas are just flowing. And so I
Yeah.
sort of took
Yeah.
that as a sign and said, hey, maybe there's this intersection of the engineering technology
Yeah.
background that I have and this desire and passion that I have for working with people.
Mhm.
And slowly that evolved and became more than engineering and doing the work that I do today. So that's maybe a longer story than you wanted, but
Oh no, it's
it's a little
perfect.
bit.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. That's really cool. I can't imagine as far as going through that you feel you hit like a plateau. I think definitely the courage to you to have those conversations with your boss and with your boss, your organization. I think that's some of the stuff you help with as far as talking with people to understand what they actually want to do. Because I feel like as engineers, we feel like we have to stay in the technical side, and if we're not in the technical side, we're no longer really doing engineering. Whereas when I talk to people, I said, as engineers, we're here to solve problems, and that's what we do. You can do that in a lot of different roles. It doesn't have to be
Right.
a strictly technical role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that, like, going through that process, I've learned a lot about like how do we uncover the strengths and the combinations of skills that we have, and
Mhm.
one idea around genius zones, and
Mm,
also connect that with the values and the other things that we care about. And so I've
yeah,
put together resources and done a lot of training and coaching with people on kind of
yeah,
getting that clarity, those
yeah,
things that are most important to them. Because if we're not intentional about who we're
mm,
trying to become and what actions we take, then we're just going to be opportunistic and things are
yeah,
just going to sort of happen. So it's kind of like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But it's not even as much as a plan, because it's not like you're going to have like this perfect 5, 10, 20-year career plan and
yeah,
everything's going to be mapped out for you.
mhm,
But it's really, I think about career clarity as much as anything as like kind of a North Star,
yeah,
right? That drive and that direction that says, hey, when you're making decisions, also kind of like a set of filters that you can
yeah.
use according to your values. Because there's the old story, classic children's story and movie of Alice in Wonderland. At what
Oh yeah,
point she's going through the forest and she comes to a
yeah,
fork in the road, meets the Cheshire Cat, and she's like, which road do I take? And the cat's like, well, where are you trying to go?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And she's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, then any road will get you there. And I feel like
yeah,
that's all too often how
yeah,
people approach their careers. They're like, I don't know where I want to go. Like, I'll just apply to a bunch of things or try some things, and hopefully I end up on a good path. And sometimes that works for people,
mhm,
but often it doesn't, because we lose that kind of intentional side of things.
yeah.
And so actually, Paul, I put together a free resource for the audience and go grab at www.engineeringcareeraccelerator.com/IncrediPaul. So they can go grab that
Awesome.
if they want to. I call it my career clarity checklist, and there's some free tools and exercises in there that might be helpful for folks.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for doing that. Yeah, for those of you listening, definitely I'll put the link in the show notes so you can click the link. And if for those of you who are listening and not on YouTube, please go to YouTube, watch on YouTube. You can see the interactions, see our expressions. It's a better experience than just listening to it. If you're on the go, if you're in the car, don't watch on YouTube. Stick to listening to it. But yeah,
Yeah,
thank you, Jeff.
don't watch YouTube and drive. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a very bad idea. But yeah, so definitely get that reminder there to go to YouTube. But that checklist that's a really great resource that you're providing. Can you kind of talk through how you even is that kind of stuff that you had done through your process, or you kind of developed it when you came about more than engineering? How did that even come to be?
Yeah, it was a combination. As I went through some of my own process, and I realized that when I was in kind of retrospect, as I was going through some of my career clarity stuff, and I still do, right? It's a never ending process to
Yeah,
continue to refine and be like, okay, what's next, right?
yeah,
Um, but I didn't have some guiding principles and some structured things that I was moving through. I
yeah,
had learned some things that were helpful, had a few mentors along the way.
yeah,
But as I got into things and kind of looked back on what were the things that helped me get clarity on that and some structure that might help, and as well as some other tools that I found along the way
Yeah.
that other professionals have used. I put that, I just kind of compiled some of those things together as a helpful resource, because I saw that a lot of the people that I was talking to were struggling with this as well. And so I wanted to put it together to help people.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did it. So I know you have the career clarity checklist. Can you talk through some of the other stuff you do, but more than engineering?
Yeah, so there's kind of two big areas,
Yeah.
and I was talking about kind of career development and leadership development. And so the career development side is mostly individuals who are trying to move through some of that career clarity stuff. They want to upgrade their mindsets. They want to make a career transition and say, hey, I'm not satisfied with where I'm at. Maybe they hit that plateau, or like a lot of people got caught up in layoffs and they're trying to figure out what's next, and do that in a really intentional way and accelerate the process, because maybe, you know, because being out of a job is hard in today's day and age. Prices are only going up these days.
Oh man.
And so I have a whole program I call the Engineering Career Accelerator, that's meant to accelerate the process of people finding opportunities, but with increased alignment and satisfaction with what they're doing, certainly increased compensation as well. So yes, there's an investment into the program, but pretty much everyone who works with me gets an ROI in terms of accelerating the process and help them work on the big picture of this, from things like the mindsets and career clarity and kind of personal branding, to certainly the pragmatic things around resumes and LinkedIn and strategic networking, to interview preparation and negotiations and everything. So everything that you need to move through an intentional career transition, we work on in that program. So that's kind of the one side. Another side that I'm getting really excited about these days, as I'm building it out, is more the leadership development side. And this is for individuals, sometimes will come to me too, but also for organizations who are trying to improve the collaboration and innovation that they have in their organizations. And what that comes down to is, how are you leading, guiding, and a key word I think is connecting the people in the organization. Because what we're finding now, and I was just looking at some data earlier today, like Gallup does a worldwide report every year on a number of different employee factors. One of the key things that they track is engagement, right? And found that in worldwide, only 20% of people are engaged in their work. In the US, it's a little bit better. It's 33%.
Really?
But that's not great. That means 2/3 of people are disengaged in their work.
Wow.
That's not what we like. And when they're disengaged, what that means is they don't really care. They're not enthusiastic and excited and really connected to the work that they're doing, which means productivity is going to be down. That means that, but even as costs are going up of employees and products, and if people are in manufacturing, if there's cost of goods, those are all going up. And so that's a bad thing. And it's been pretty consistent between about in the low 30% for the last few years. It hasn't changed too much. But some organizations can figure that out and vastly improve that. And so things like improving our mindsets and awareness of, okay, how do I fit into this whole process? And can I uncover some of those blind spots that are holding me and my team back from, again, the potential that we have? How do we build a flow of communication? Because some leaders are way too far on, they're really great listeners, but they're timid and actually having opinions and sharing those. Some people go the other way and they're always sharing their opinions, but they're not great listeners. So it's that balance of getting in that channeled flow of communication, and who needs to understand what, and how do you do that effectively? And then also building psychological safety in your team, so that people feel safe to take risks, to bring up challenges, things without fear of punishment. Because if they don't, then they're going to be suppressing the things that they try.
Yeah.
right? And they're going to be suppressing the learning and the innovation and everything that needs. And when you put all that together, we have connection where people feel seen, they feel valued, they feel engaged,
Yes.
and they're driving together with the organization's goals, because they also feel connected in how that is helping them grow and develop in the way that they want to as well. And when you can do that, it's a win-win for everybody, ideally.
Yes. So that's so good. And this whole idea of psychological safety, it's so critical to things, and it's newer to me in the last year. And then I was just talking to someone. So the previous podcast, he brought it up as well, the psychological safety. I feel like a lot of leaders don't understand, just because your people aren't saying anything doesn't mean that they're in agreement with you if you haven't created the space for that.
Yeah. Let me just give you a personal example of when I was doing this quite badly. Okay. So when I was in my corporate role, and I'd started my MBA as part of the first leadership class that I had in my MBA program, we administered a 360-degree review process. What that meant was I was delivering a survey to about 12 people. So the team that I was managing, a few peers that I worked directly across in the organization, and some of the people that were more senior to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And got feedback on a number of different factors, but the one very clear theme that came out of that report was that Jeff doesn't listen.
Oh man.
Right. That I wasn't a great listener. And it wasn't just that I didn't spend the time to listen. It's that I was not considering what other people were sharing, and I didn't value and engage and even seem to them to care about what they were sharing. That if someone brings up an idea, I shut it down because I already have a path I'm on. Right. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Right. And partly because that's certain, it's not what I thought I was doing, and it's not what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
Right. It was against what my values were, but clearly I was not aware of how I was actually acting and being with people. Right. So what that did was open up some really important conversations with a number of people. It opened up this space of willingness to change for me. And we did a number of things but I started to ask them to please help me on this path to being a better listener. Right. And we put reminders I had on my laptop everywhere I went. When I took it, I had a sticky note that said, listen. And on our team area on the whiteboard, it had in the corner, listen. And I invited them anytime that I was cutting them off and not listening or not considering their ideas, that they could call me out. And they did.
That's good.
Right. And every time they did that, I reinforced that, and I thanked them for that. So that over time, it wasn't immediate, but over time, they built that psychological safety and willingness to bring things up and challenge me when they needed to. Because otherwise they were kind of suppressing some things. I was, in the environment that I was creating previously, suppressing their brilliance. Right. And their potential. Right. And so it was a process, but they needed to see that I was serious and committed to this. Was I perfect? Not even close. But I asked them to help me along that way. And so leaders in that psychological safety piece, we need to seek to recognize those blind spots and then lead with vulnerability. Recognize our infallibility. There. And when people see that you're not trying to pretend like you're perfect, then they don't feel like they have to pretend to be perfect. They can bring up the challenges and struggles. Right. Because they have challenges in the work that they're doing, and new initiatives that are happening, and their concerns. Can I do this? Like, people struggle with that. They have personal struggles at home in their communities and other things they're dealing with. Right. They're worried about other things besides just at work. We want people to bring their whole selves. But if we're being just so transactional about, okay, do this, okay, there you go, then we're not going to bring out the best in people when we do that.
No, that's really key. And thanks for sharing that story. I think that's a good story of you going through the process of getting the feedback, but not only getting the feedback, but taking it to heart and swallowing that pill. Because yeah, if it's we always say that feedback is a gift, but negative feedback is it's the gift you don't want. So
Yeah.
it's like you
Yeah.
can take that back. And
Yeah.
not all leaders are willing to do what you did and to take that to heart and to hold yourself accountable, but challenge your team to hold you accountable and set all those reminders. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Feedback's a gift. I had another mentor who put it in another ways that truth is a gift. Like sharing the truth with someone or having that shared with you is
Yeah.
a gift. Now, obviously, when that truth is shared, we get to decide what we're going to do with that. Are we going to
Yes.
get defensive about it?
Yes.
Or are we going to, look for the opportunity to change? And hopefully we are more open-minded to do that. And, because we all have flaws and challenges and things.
Yeah.
And as we grow in our career and the complexity of work that we do and the increase of responsibilities, like we need to be able to learn over time to deal with increased complexity and change. That's just the realities.
Yes.
We get to kind of a plateau, but then we need to seek out a new challenge, and that grows, and we're going to be uncomfortable where we have to step out of our comfort zones.
Yeah.
Right. But we need to
really
be able to do that well over time.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be perfect in any stretch of the imagination. So we need to stretch ourselves and get out of that so that we can grow but be vulnerable and ask for help along the way.
Yeah, definitely. That's so true. I don't know if you heard of Jason Selker or not, but he wrote a book called Relentless Solution Focus and talks about really focusing on the solution and not focusing on problem-centric thinking.
Yeah.
And so what you're talking about, the perfection, like he recently gave a talk and he said, screw perfection. It's like perfection is not possible. You focus on improvement. And so many times when we can do 100 things right, we'll do one thing wrong and we focus on the one thing we did wrong, and that stifles our improvement.
Right. And I would sometimes call myself a recovering perfectionist. and I've had to stress with that. And so one of the shifts that I've made in sort of coming to grips with that is when I was in perfection mode, I was always so focused on the difference between where I was at and what I thought the ideal perfect way of being was, right?
Yeah.
Which means I'm always in the state of lack.
Yeah.
Right. But recognizing and accepting emotionally and mentally that perfection will never happen.
Yeah.
Actually made a shift when I was like, okay, I'm never going to be perfect, but I can shift how I think about this and thinking about what's cool about that is that I will always have an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And that will never end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exciting when I look at it that way.
Yeah.
Right. That I'm never just going to stall out and never have and know everything like maybe we thought we did as teenagers. But there's always opportunity to grow. And that is exciting to me.
That's super exciting. Like John Maxwell says that growth happens daily, not in a day. I feel like a lot of times when we get pumped up, when we read a good book or we go to a seminar and we're like, we're gonna do all these things. And then like a couple weeks later, we're like back into our old habits because like what you were saying, like we still see it such as a gap. It's like, well, it didn't work. I can't get it to work. But if we really just try and take the steps to get just 1% better, like James Clear says, 1% better each day, that consistency compounds. And it's when you look back, it's tremendous to see how far you've come.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as far as leadership, I know you do a lot of stuff with leadership. I know you helped my nonprofit, the Knowledge STEM. You talked about leadership to us a few years ago now. So thank you again for that. That was a really amazing talk. So as far as leadership, what are some key things for you feel like engineers especially need to know? Because I feel like we focus more on the technical side, and then a lot of times engineers are told like if you want to advance, you need to go into this leadership title, but a leadership position. But I think you and I both know that leadership is not necessarily a position. It's kind of how you carry yourself and what you do. So if you talk a little bit more about that, or how you help engineers in their leadership.
Yeah, so let's talk about the challenges for a little bit, right? Like we
Yeah.
already talked about some of the stats around engagement and everything, but when it comes to engineers, I think engineers really hold on to this identity
Mm,
of the types of problems that they solve, and
mm,
when they're moving through kind of the individual contributor roles that they might have, as
yeah.
I'm an entry level engineer and maybe become a senior engineer and maybe a technical lead or something like that. They're in this space of their optimal contribution in those roles is their ability to solve the technical problems that
Hmm.
need to be solved, right? And all too often, the really great engineers, which there are a lot of them,
Yeah.
then get rewarded by that to say, hey, we need someone to lead the team now,
Yeah.
or take on this new initiative and lead this. And
Yeah.
so they get put into a leadership position at some point,
Hmm.
and just sort of told to go do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but we forget that shift into a leadership mode is, and the value that you bring is completely different. The focus that you have is completely different. It's not on your ability to do the technical work anymore.
Mm,
Now, depending on the structure of the role in the organization, you may have
yeah.
to do some of that, and you will certainly probably be mentoring people in
Hmm.
that early on, especially. But that's not the key driver. Your key driver is to enable your team and build them and transform them to have the capability and transform together to be able to achieve the goals collectively,
Yes.
right? And that's just very different focus. But when we put people in those positions
Yeah.
without helping them understand the shift that needs to happen, we're kind of inadvertently, not intentionally, but we're inadvertently setting people up to fail.
Yeah.
And that's sad, because that's gonna, because on one hand, you're taking a great engineer, putting them in a position where they're not succeeding, which means they're not doing great engineering work, and they're also not doing great leadership work. So it's
Oh,
a misutilization of resources. But
yeah.
again, I think that, and it's not that they can't do it, it's just that we're not enabling and giving them the support and the training and the coaching to be able to do that well,
Hmm.
right? And so that's some of the challenges there. And so, like this, because what they end up doing is sort of instructing, they maybe try and delegate, but they hold back because they have this reputation of being a great engineer, and so they're like, oh
Mm,
no, I need to do this because I'm the best person. I don't trust anyone else to do that. So they don't trust, they don't open up themselves to psychological safety. They're not aware of how they're holding people back,
yeah.
and they don't know what this communication flow looks like, to kind of go back to those three things of awareness and communication
Hmm.
and psychological safety. And so they need to move through this transformation of the focus on who they are and where they're delivering value, change inside themselves,
Hmm.
right? Identify those shifts that need to happen in a way that aligns to enable their teams to succeed as well.
No, that's really good. It definitely is a shift. And I feel like a lot of times we take people who are really good in an individual contributor role and they're killing it. And then we're like, oh, you're really good at this. Let's say you could be the leader for that. But not knowing that leadership is a skill. And with any skill, even if you have some natural abilities, you need to develop it, you need the support. I think that's really key. You can't just throw someone into it and be like, yeah, you can do it just because you did it by yourself. It looks a lot different when you're working through people and trying to motivate them instead of doing
Mhm.
everything yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's part of my issues. We were talking about that story earlier. I was thrown into into a new organization where previously I was an individual contributor, and I was supposed to be building out a new market and building out a new team and doing some different things. And I was like, hey, this is exciting. This is an opportunity for me to grow. But I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm.
And so, but I wasn't transparent enough to ask for the help. Like I
Mm.
was too prideful at the time to
Yeah.
ask for the help of the things that I was insecure about.
Mhm.
Right. And no one, just at that time, people weren't checking in on me or really asking about that. Like,
Yeah.
we had like check-in meetings, but I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I knew how to navigate through what needed to happen and the
Yeah.
change that I needed to make
Yeah.
through that. And again, it's very rarely, if ever, intentional. Like I'm trying to destroy this and set this person up to fail, but we just are so focused on what we're trying to accomplish and the different and all the responsibilities that we have that we just miss that, behind all the tasks that need to be done, that there's people that are doing that. And these are
Yeah.
fallible humans that we
Yes.
need to see as people and recognize and connect with them so
Yes.
that, again, we can unlock that potential in them. So, I felt that experience personally, and I've seen it in so many other people as they're like, oh, I have all these responsibilities. I don't know how to do these, part of it's just because so many things are new. And
Yeah.
also there's a shift in them that needs to happen.
Oh, that's so good. That it's interesting that you mentioned. I think that happens to a lot of people when they move from an individual contributor to a leadership role, that you're just kind of expected to know it, and it's really hard, especially if you work, and it's the individual contributors that are the top talents that everyone's been saying that you're doing really well, to have that humility enough to say like, I need help with this. Because I know
Mhm.
for me personally, to say something that like that, I would feel like, oh, I didn't actually deserve this promotion if I have to ask for help in this area, even though it's something that I've never done before.
Right. And that's part of the issue is like we need to enable people to and recognize and normalize that. That's part of that
Yeah.
psychological safety and building
Mhm.
trust. And you need to help enable them to be willing to step up. And that's true of new leaders, but that's also like someone on your team. If you're a
Yeah.
frontline leader, like
Mhm.
someone was given a new task, they don't know what they're doing, but
Mhm.
are they willing, do they feel safe to say, I don't know how to do
Yeah.
this, and they find themselves floundering for days sometimes, and then you finally check in and they may or may not be willing to share that with you, right?
Mhm.
But that again is, we need to build and normalize that and lead with the vulnerability in ourselves so
Yeah.
that people feel safe to do the same.
That's really good. Really good. As far as the vulnerability, I like what you said about that, because I don't remember who said this, but a lot of times with leaders, there's a tendency not to want to talk about your vulnerabilities because you feel like it's gonna make you feel less than, people look down on you.
Mhm.
But in my experience, and I think most people's experience when they have leaders who have weaknesses, is that your people already know what your weaknesses are.
Yeah, they may
And
be more aware of it than you are.
yeah, exactly. I know you talk about the self-awareness. I think that self-awareness is almost, I consider it a misnomer, because you really can't know yourself until someone tells you something that makes you look deeper. And then that's the moment that you have to ask the questions and take that to heart. 'Cause if you relied on yourself only, you'd be like, well, I'm doing great. I think I'm doing great, so I don't have to change. Until that moment that someone else tells you you're not doing great, and that you have enough respect for that person to actually take it to heart and move forward. Because sometimes, depending on where it's coming from as leaders, it can be disregarded as maybe a lot of people are telling them they're doing a great job, but those people don't see the other interactions that are happening, that where they could have some improvements.
Right. And so it makes me think of one model of personal change that I like that talks about kind of 4 stages. Where there's kind of two elements to it. It's our competence and our conscious or unconsciousness. And so
Mm.
you start at level 1 where you're unconsciously incompetent, which means you're completely unaware
Yeah.
that you're not good at something, but you don't know it, right?
Yeah.
And so something happens, kind of that ouch moment that's like, oh, I need to change. That gets us to be consciously incompetent. So now I know I'm aware of it, but I'm still bad at it, and there's a long way. Then we move to kind of stage 3, where it's really conscious, effort-filled work, and it takes work, so that daily practice to move through this change to become consciously competent, right? And then eventually we're kind of building our mindsets and our changes. We're actually firing our neurons and building our mental muscles over time, so it becomes part of who we are and our natural way of being. And so we can eventually get to that unconsciously competent, right? So it becomes the more natural reaction for us, instead of having to really consciously think about, this is how I act, right? And you can think about examples of us moving through that process in so many ways, from like learning to drive, right? We didn't know how to do it, but I didn't know that driving was a thing, to, oh, I'm getting close to getting my driver's license. Then I start driving, and that's really consciously incompetent to consciously competent, because you're practicing, but you're thinking about everything. And eventually a lot of the things become natural. We just recognize things kind of slow down for us. Because we have that experience over time. We've put in the reps, right? And but that's a really simple example, but we can see that in any trait or shift that we're trying to make personally. We need to move through that process there.
Yes, definitely. And I would say it definitely takes longer than you think it's going to take.
But also we can often make progress faster than we think we're going to make too, right? By committing to the process. And I think the biggest leap is that awareness leap, because with no awareness, if no one's sharing that with us, or whatever that catalyst moment is, then we're not making any progress, because we don't even know. Right? So we need to uncover those blind spots, because we don't. A lot of times it's almost like we say, and it's not just the blind spots of what needs to change. Sometimes it's the blind spots of what's underneath that's keeping us from actually changing, because maybe we're putting band-aids and kind of prescribing behaviors, but really there's beliefs and assumptions and mindsets that are underneath that are holding us back, and we don't even know what those are. Right? So it's sort of like saying, hey, I want to make this change. One foot's on the gas pedal, but we have internal things that we're not aware of that are like hidden commitments that are putting the foot on the brake at the same time, when we're not making any progress. Right.
Wow.
So there are processes and some of the tools that I use with my clients to uncover what those are. Because kind of like doing an X-ray, so we can like look, hey, what's inside, what's actually going on, instead of just prescribing something and not knowing the root cause of what.
Oh, that's really good. Talking from the unconsciously incompetent to the unconsciously competent, and all those steps. That is so remarkable, and all the stuff that you do, but that's why coaching is so important, because there's only so much you can do by yourself, and coaching just accelerates it, as far as having someone unlock the potential within you.
Right. Yeah. And so it's so fun. it really is an honor when I get to work with people. I like to say I get a front row seat to seeing other people succeed and change and grow. And it's an honor when people share some really personal changes with me, and some of the challenges, but also the opportunities and successes. And I love seeing that with people.
That's amazing. Well, we are about out of time. It really flew by, but I want to make sure, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, or any words of wisdom you want to share before we close things out?
My final thing, to kind of go back to the clarity idea that we were talking about, is to live with intention, right? One of my favorite books that I would recommend, and there's a Harvard Business Review article that people can look at too, is by Clayton Christensen. He's probably best known as someone who came up with the the theory of disruption. He wrote the Innovator's Dilemma book, but he wrote another book towards the end of his life. He passed away a few years ago, called How Will You Measure Your Life?
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting operating question to say,
Yeah.
what are the things that are so important to you? Do you know that? Can you live with intention? And he applies a bunch of cool like business theories to how to our personal lives and how we operate appropriately. But so I'd recommend doing that. But even just spend some time thinking about that. Like, what is success to you? Not just at your workplace or whatever, but in your life, and are you living congruent and in alignment with that? And if not, what changes need to be made. But a lot of people don't even take the time to figure out what those things are that they care about. And so and there may not be a better question that you can answer than, what do I want to, what's the impact I want to leave? What do I feel like my purpose in life is? Right. And then being able to operate accordingly. So I'd highly recommend people to check out that book, or at least just spend some time with that. And certainly if people want to connect with me, I'd love to chat with them. And I find that a lot of people need some extra help to guide them through, because if you're trying to do this alone, it's really hard. Yeah. And so I love to walk alongside people and be that guide so that they can be the hero in their own story. And so people want to connect with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. Again, we had that a link we set up, www.engineeringcareeraccelerator.com/IncrediPaul, or go check out my main website at morethaneng.com.
Awesome. That's so cool. I'm going to check out that book. I'm going to put a link to it, to at least to the title of it, so that people can check that out, as well as the link to your website, morethaneng.com. And it was the Engineering Accelerator. Is that what
Engineering Career Accelerator? Yeah.
engineeringcareeraccelerator.com/IncrediPaul. So I'll put all those links. Put a link to your LinkedIn profile too, if you don't mind that, so people can find you there as well. Jeff, it has been an honor having you on the podcast. For when we first connected on LinkedIn, and you help with my nonprofit, I already mentioned that. It is clear that you have a passion for helping people, and all the different posts and videos you put out on LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, first step, if you're trying to improve your career, you got to be on LinkedIn. But definitely connect with Jeff on there. He posts a lot of amazing content on leadership, on career growth, and those two areas that he helps with, as well as if you need help trying to find clarity in your career as an engineer, definitely connect with Jeff as well. And I know I learned a lot from this discussion. It's super great to have you on the podcast. And for all of those of you listening or watching, if you're not watching, you should be watching. Last time I'll mention that. But I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jeff, and keep being incredible.
Thank you for listening to the IncrediPaul podcast with Paul Ferranbi. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible. Incredible.